too.
More than a dozen corporations, including Delta Airlines, Hertz, and the First National Bank of Omaha, say they're ending NRA member discounts and other perks in the wake of the school shooting. In a statement, the NRA calls that a shameful display of political and civic cowardice. Axios reports companies are increasingly stepping up on social issues when government has been reluctant or gridlocked. Mike Allen and Jim Vandehei are the co-founders of Axios, and they're with us this morning. Good morning, gentlemen. Jim, let me ask you this question about the NRA. There's sometimes when corporations are ahead of politicians and that pulls the politicians along with them. There's sometimes when corporations react to pressure that's different than the kind of pressure that operates on politicians. Which is at play here with the NRA?
Yeah, I think there's two things that are hitting companies simultaneously that are really reshaping our relationship with the companies and the companies that we work for. One is social media. I mean, people can instantly put pressure on companies to make big decisions about their products. Two is, and I see this even at Axios, where the millennial workforce has a different expectation of us as employers. They expect you to take a stand. They expect you to have opinions. They expect you to stand for something bigger than just profit. And companies are feeling this. And you saw this with the Muslim ban. You saw it with immigration. You saw it with global warming. And now you're seeing it with guns, where companies like Blackstone over the weekend, Bank of America over the weekend, are saying, listen, we're going to take a look at our clients' relationships with gun manufacturers. This never would have happened 5 or 10 years ago.
No, when I was coming up, you didn't even challenge the company boss. You might have thought he or she was wrong, but you wouldn't speak out about it, certainly so publicly, Mike.
No, that's right. It's a lot harder now to be a CEO because these issues that Jim is talking about, and this includes Me Too, this includes LGBT discrimination, this includes immigration, like all of those, it used to be risky for a brand or a company to talk about it. Now they have to. And it's funny, this is partly a Trump effect. Just in the last year, the incentives have changed from pulling back to now you have to speak up.
But that's because purchasers make their decisions every day about whether to fly Delta or not fly Delta. But voters are different in the way they behave. If you want to punish a lawmaker, you have to wait all the way till November. And in this case, you have a calcified group supporting Second Amendment rights. They believe in them very strongly. So you have a pushback, whereas with consumer products, you don't really have a pushback. So in terms of the way this affects on lawmakers, isn't it going to be a little bit different?
You're right. For all the people who want change in the wake of this shooting, it has to be in voting. Listen, since the 1994 election, the reason that Republicans and a lot of Democrats, by the way, never challenge the NRA is because they believe that it's political suicide to do so. If millennials turn out, if voters who are outraged turn out, and suddenly you see members of Congress losing because of the gun issue, it won't just change. It'll change like that. It'll change instantly because lawmakers respond to incentives, and the incentive is for them is, I want to keep my job. If you lose your job because of it, the game changes on a debate that has otherwise been defined differently for 30 years.
I was talking to a lawmaker this weekend who pointed out something I hadn't thought of. Your freedom rider is going to be a voter in 2020. That's right. And they're starting to realize that there's a big wave coming up, and just as their consumer behavior is different, they also are a lot more likely to have their own opinions than mirror their folks or mirror some of the other influencers that young voters had in the past.
More millennials than baby boomers.
The president said that he's going to talk about this again today with the nation's governors. Congress comes back to work after a long break. Do you expect anything to happen?
Listen, it could have, right, listen, this president, more than anyone, he does have a superpower. He has this ability to get Republicans to do things that we always thought they wouldn't do. We saw it play out on deficits. We saw it play out on how Republicans view the FBI. So if he said, listen, we're going to do something, we're really going to raise the age, we're really going to toughen background checks, we're really going to even go after the assault weapon ban if he ever wanted to do it, he could do it. I don't think he will, because his cues are always, he muses in public about what he talks about in private. And when he talks in public, he's talking about arming teachers. Like, that's the thing that has him most amped up right now. I don't think anybody thinks that that's the solution, and it certainly is not a pathway to a bipartisan compromise to get significant gun legislation.
Will he have to use his superpower to get his personal pilot now to be head of the FAA, which is something that he's now throwing out there? Is this pilot qualified, number one?
So this is the pilot who flew Trump Force One during the campaign, John Duncan, a great name. And we were talking in the green room, like, if we became president, like we'd appoint our friends to a bunch of jobs. Somebody in the Axios story saying this is like on Seinfeld when Kramer uses his caddy as a jury consultant.
Yes. So what are you saying?
It has to be confirmed by the Senate.
It's not a laugh. I mean, this is the President of the United States has put forward
Yes.
his personal pilot to run the FAA. Like, that's not, like, we joke about it. It's not a joke. I mean,
Right.
this is a massive part of the bureaucracy that regulates what happens in the air. And this goes to the heart of how Donald Trump does run the presidency like a family business. He's got his son-in-law sitting there making big decisions when he can't clear the background check to be able to get security clearance to have access to the most sensitive intelligence.
This is
He's got
Jared
his daughter,
Kushner. Yes.
Jared Kushner. He's got his daughter Ivanka, intimately involved in tons of public policy. There's so many days where we're like, we laugh and laugh, but this isn't normal. It's not normal to have this many family members this intertwined in the operation of the White House for the obvious reasons. When it happens, it just presents conflicts of interest. There's a reason Chief of Staff Kelly is outraged by this, doesn't really want the kids there, because it just makes life more complicated for the people who are there trying to do their jobs and not feel like the deck is stacked because they're not part of the family circle.
But this is how Trump has run his business for decades.
All right. And is the pilot qualified? That's what I'm curious about, to run the FAA.
He did okay with
That's a
Trump Force
question.
One.
That's a question. Mike Allen.
Trump used to say that he liked his plane better than Air Force One. I think
I
he's changed
remember
his
that.
mind.
I think he has too. Mike Allen and Jim Vandehei, thank you very much for joining us at the table.